Humble greetings to you, sir, and welcome to my presentation. The crux of my presentation is to reflect on my experiences related to multiculturalism during my school experience period. But before I go further, I would like to say a few about myself. I am Asonele Makwatlaza and I'm 23 years old. I was born and raised in the deep rural areas of Umtata in the Eastern Cape province. I finished my matric in 2018 at Konobuhi High School in Umtata, and I went to further my studies in Alice at the University of Forte, doing Bachelor of Economics, and I obtained my degree in May 2023. I am currently enrolled for postgraduate certificate in education. I'm a very dedicated individual who always aspire to make a difference than for a living, and as a holistic business studies and economics teacher, my main dream and goal is to be a great source and a great tool to uplift young minds and produce future leaders, problem solvers, economists, analysts, and future entrepreneurs for the betterment of our economic future. Then to move on to my personal perspective regarding multiculturalism, I had a belief that as we are all black people of almost the same tribe, we had one way of doing things and one culture. I only believed that we are different in terms of Christianity and tradition, and I had a belief that Christians have one way of doing things and one culture, not knowing that Christians alone have multiple cultures, same as people who believe in tradition. I didn't know that people with ancestral calling have different ways and different cultures in terms of doing things. Before my school experience, I was not so much exposed to diversity and multiple cultures, especially in schools, because I believed that all schools, even nowadays, are using the assimilation approach where all learners have to enter the gates of the school and do whatever it is that is the rule of the school. Until I went to Mdeni High School, where I experienced so much diversity and learner differences. I never expected such differences between learners. I never expected such different cultures in schools, because at Mdeni High School I experienced a lot of multiple cultures in terms of sexuality, religion, language, and also mindset. And I consider this experience a very positive experience, and it played a huge role to myself, because now it changed my perspective and it made me realize that I was just lacking information and I was just lacking exposure with regard to multiculturalism. I was just so biased that I didn't even expect so much differences between learners. But now I understand, because of this experience, I understand that as a teacher and as a future educator, I must consider being holistic and understanding as an educator in terms of considering learner differences, in terms of understanding learners personally, in terms of considering their different values, their different attitude, their different cultures, and their different beliefs. Then passing on to my specific multicultural classroom dynamics, I just realized that multiculturalism does not only happen in events that are outside classroom, but also inside the classroom. There are ways of doing things, and there are different cultures in terms of learning between the learners. If I could unpack some challenges that I faced in the classroom, number one is the bad treatment by other learners to a learner who had ancestral calling. For example, they sometimes bullied this learner and they called her by names that she has demons. Another challenge was teachers favoring top achievers more than lower class students, and this perspective might cause a decline in the performance of these students, because, for example, I remember in my lessons these learners could sometimes not participate well, and they were not confident enough to participate because their contributions were sometimes undermined by the top achievers. Then one thing that was a success and made me survive in my school experience is that I used a holistic approach in terms of handling learners. This approach helped me to understand these learners personally, to understand them according to their backgrounds and differences in terms of learning and cultures. This approach helped me to be a sensitive educator, and it helped me to allow them to even respond to my questions in the class according to their beliefs, their values, and their attitudes. And one thing that surprised me in that school is the love and unity and kindness amongst learners. Although there was a lot of diversity, But I was so surprised that, for example, during break times, these learners would gather together and they had common exercises, common interests, and common hobbies. They were gathered together with one love and care. Then moving on to my cultural awareness with regard to my interaction with learners from different backgrounds. At first, I almost struggled because I was so surprised of the diversity and multiple cultures I experienced there. And what I experienced there was way much beyond than what I understood as multiculturalism. But I understood and I ended up being a positive teacher because now I realized that I must not view learners just for subject matters, but I must also consider their differences in terms of culture, personal issues, and different religions. And now that helped me to be a very positive teacher with good interaction with the learners. And so, to promote inclusivity, cultural sensitivity, and equity within the classroom, I had to consider using multiple teaching approaches. And these approaches were the direct method, the role play method, and also the discussion method. I use these strategies to accommodate all types of learners because I believe that learners are different even in terms of learning. So because they are different in learning and different in according to their backgrounds, and also their level of understanding is not the same, these strategies specifically they helped them because some learners learn by listening, some learners learn by doing, some learners learn by discussing, and some learners learn by practicals. So these strategies were accommodative to all these kinds of learners, and they were so effective enough. And I even used code switching for those learners who had a language barrier to make it so accommodative, to make my lessons be simple and accessible to all the learners. And learners had equity and equal access to my presentation because these strategies, especially the role play and the discussion method, kept the learners together. Learners were so focused and participative, and it promoted respect among learners because, for example, if a learner is contributing or a learner is answering to my question, others, instead of undermining that contribution, they would back up by adding their views, and learners were able to answer the questions according to their views, according to their interests, and according to their beliefs. And then moving on to my transformation as a result of multicultural education. As I did mention before that I was a person who was so biased, and I was not exposed to multiculturalism and diversity in schools because I grew up in a place where there's not much of multiple cultures. I believe now and I have a better and broader understanding of multiculturalism, and I believe that as a future educator I will enter the field having a lot of experience in terms of considering inclusivity, diversity, and equity in schools. And I believe that I must be holistic enough to view all learners in terms of their differences, different backgrounds, and different personalities, and different values and beliefs and cultures, because this experience and the knowledge I have about multicultural education has emphasized the importance of developing good relationships with learners and their parents for the betterment of their learning. And now I believe that when I enter the field, I will play a huge role and I will equip young minds, and also I will also make a change and a huge role in the incoming generation. Then, in addition, speaking of the institutional culture, I am very blessed to experience the institutional culture of Mdeni High School. I had a very positive and interesting interaction with the school staff and other members at the school. There was love and unity amongst colleagues, and even us as student teachers, we never felt small and were never violated. Everyone was considered as a staff member. There was a unity, kindness, and love. The relationship was just positive. Everything was positive. There was no discrimination against any staff member. Even the EAs, the securities, the kitchen aunt, everyone was considered a staff member, and there was no discrimination, there was equity and equality among staff members. And this experience also played a huge role because now I know the life of being a teacher. I know the life of spending quality time with colleagues, the life of working together as colleagues with unity and love. So in short, all I can say is that there is a culture of good love, great kindness, and great interaction between stakeholders of Mdeni High School, and that experience alone taught me the importance of being good, kind, and loving to other people. So in conclusion, all I can emphasize is that the teaching practice is one of the greatest platforms of experience for future educators, because it is a platform where one gets to experience all the events and all the activities that usually take place at school. And that this teaching practice is one of the things that I can undoubtedly testify about their significance. It was very important to me because now I am a future educator with a broad understanding of multiculturalism, with a broad understanding of life in the field, with a broad understanding of how to view and consider a learner. I'm now a future educator with a lot of experience and a lot of innovation and creativity. And all I can emphasize to those who have a dream of becoming teachers, all I can say is that teaching requires passion, teaching requires patience, teaching requires dedication, teaching requires commitment, and teaching requires one to be an understanding educator, a sensitive educator, and someone who understands that learners are different, learners are diverse in terms of culture and in terms of learning. And I would advise them to please familiarize themselves with multicultural education so that when they enter in the field, they will enter the field with great experience and great understanding of all these events that occur in the school. I would sow rice if I was planning for a year. I would plant trees if I was planning for a decade. But because I'm planning for a lifetime, I will educate young people, because teaching is the greatest act of optimism. And as a future pedagogical practitioner, I have three loves: the love of learning, the love of learners, and the love of putting the first two loves together. And that puts us straight to an end of this presentation. Thank you very much for your love, attention, and time. Have a great time. Thank you.